In southern Brazil, an extratropical cyclone causes flooding, leaving dozens dead.
Authorities say over 52,000 people were affected by the calamity. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Marcos Jr. secures $1 million worth of investments from Indonesia. Philippines joins Malaysia in a maritime drill off Mindanao waters. ASEAN Chair Joko Widodo welcomes Asian and Western nation leaders. European Union to set a mini-summit on G20 sidelines. And the United States vows climate-resilient food security investments in Africa. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has secured $22 million in investments from Indonesia's leading companies, underscoring the significance of strengthening the partnership between the Philippines and Indonesia. Vin Pascua tells us more.
During his visit, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. also held a meeting with Pacific Satellite Nusantara, which will allocate 13.5 gigabytes per second of bandwidth to the Philippines through a new satellite set to launch in 2023. President Marcos emphasizes the importance of the ASEAN bloc's commitment to peaceful dispute resolution under international law, commending the progress made on the Code of Conduct in the West Philippine Sea issue with China. The Philippines and 8 other ASEAN member states signed a Memorandum of Understanding for agricultural cooperation and small business development, aiming to enhance economic integration in Southeast Asia. Additionally, President Marcos Jr. expresses his support for South Korea's goal of achieving a denuclearized Korean peninsula, emphasizing the importance of North Korea's compliance with UN Security Council resolutions. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines and the United Arab Emirates, or UAE, have reiterated their dedication to bolstering their economic relations through a free trade agreement. During a meeting on the sidelines of the ASEAN Economic Meeting, Trade Chief Alfredo Pascual and UAE Foreign Trade Secretary Thani bin Ahmed Al Zayudi discussed enhancing investments and cooperation. This encompasses the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement and the Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement, among other initiatives of the two nations.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is scheduled to participate in the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Summit in the United States, set for November. This summit presents an excellent opportunity to enhance the Philippines' economic ties with the United States and other member states of APEC. According to the Philippine ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, the president intends to hold meetings with potential investors from Silicon Valley, in addition to engaging with fellow APEC leaders. President Marcos is also planning visits to another city on the west coast of the United States, with a possible brief stopover in Hawaii.
The South Korean government is funding a language project aimed at training artificial intelligence to accurately translate the Korean language into Filipino. The project's Governor Jung Hee-lee, along with Kyunghee University professor Jun Ji-yoon, visited the Philippines from the 3rd to 6th of September to evaluate the program's advancements and engage in discussions with their Filipino counterparts. In addition to creating a Korean to Filipino translation tool, the project's broader goal is to address gaps in Korean-Filipino language research. The Filipino language, spoken by millions globally, currently lacks sufficient translation data, which poses challenges for achieving high-quality translation results. However, the National Institute of the Korean Language anticipates significant progress once the program concludes by 2025.
Philippines and Malaysia's navies are conducting maritime drills in Mindanao. Eden Santos for the details.
The Philippine Navy is holding a week-long maritime drills with the Royal Malaysian Navy or RMN in Mindanao. This is to enhance capabilities in combined planning as well as to level up interoperability between two nations' forces. Two RMN ships arrived in Davao City Sunday to participate in the drills dubbed Malfilo 24-23. According to Naval Forces Eastern Mindanao, the said maritime exercises demonstrate the preparedness of the two naval forces in any situation in maritime domains. Philippines and Malaysia are operating jointly on land, air, and sea as part of the bilateral drills. The exercises kick off last September 4 and will run till September 8. Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, is set to start Operation Baklas in the coming days to remove unlawful election materials posted by candidates for the October 30 Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections, or BSKE. According to COMELEC Chairman George Garcia, the operation to remove illegal campaign paraphernalia will start once all certificates of candidacy, or COCs, that were filed have been processed. Garcia adds that they will not allow any paraphernalia even if there is no vote for written on it. Posters of the candidates, both in public or private places, will also be removed. The chairman notes that these moves are considered premature campaigning, especially since the COC filing just ended. Social media posts promoting candidates before the official campaign period starts are also violations of the election rules. The campaign period for the BSKE will start from October 19 to 28.
The Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, or CICC, is considering limiting the number of SIMs that an individual can own to just 10. This is after the agency discovered that one person was able to register at least 600 cards. CICC notes that the limit of 10 SIM cards to an individual was proposed by telecommunication providers. The agency has been monitoring SIM registrations, having already seized more than 100,000 cards used for illegal means.
Tropical Depression Ineng has exited the Philippine area of responsibility. Pagasa spots the eye of Ineng at 1,415 kilometers east-northeast of extreme northern Luzon as of 2 p.m. today. Ineng is moving northeast at 20 kilometers per hour with maximum sustained winds of 55 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 70 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, Pagasa notes that Ineng will remain to not affect the country. However, it is enhancing the southwest monsoon with the remnants of Haikui. The enhanced monsoon will bring a significant amount of rain over the western portions of northern and central Luzon in the next 3 days. The weather agency forecasts that Ineng is bound to accelerate northeast towards Japan. Coming up, Indonesian President Joko Widodo welcomes world leaders for the ASEAN Summit. The European Union plans to organize a mini-summit on G20 sidelines. And the United Kingdom declares Russian group Wagner a terrorist organization. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Best Public Affairs Program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos. Every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Paano nga ba ang buhay ng isang teacher dito sa ating bansa?
First week pa lang po nung teaching ko, na-depress na po ako.
Ano-ano ang mga daing at hiling nila?
May mga teacher talaga na nag-rant dun sa social media. Masakit po makita yun, pero valid eh.
Kamusta naman po, sir, yung sahod? Nahihirapan po akong sumagot.
At ano-ano ang mga plano ng ating pamahalaan para sa kanila?
For next fiscal year, wala din itong salary increase.
Ngayong Teachers Month, kamustahin natin sina ma'am at sir. Mag-reality check tayo. Naku, naalala ko tuloy si Miss Tapia.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. The second day of the 43rd ASEAN Summit has kicked off as other nation leaders arrive in Jakarta, Indonesia. Indonesian President Joko Widodo welcomes the nation leaders from Asian and Western countries. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reaffirms Ottawa's ties with the bloc. According to Widodo, the ASEAN and Canada launch a strategic partnership that will produce more concrete cooperation between the two parties. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has vowed $95.4 million in 3 of its initiatives. The Australian leader also declared the establishment of a new Southeast Asia business program to boost two-way trade. Meanwhile, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida gives an invitation to the ASEAN leaders to visit Tokyo and hold a Japan-ASEAN Special Summit. This is in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of Japan-ASEAN friendly cooperation by December this year. Chinese Premier Li Qiang, however, says that major powers must oppose confrontations. This is a reference to Washington as top Asian and United States officials meet for talks. His comments came after Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu warned against establishing NATO-like alliances in the Asia-Pacific.
Myanmar's military government has criticized the recent ASEAN statement, which condemned the military's violence and its targeting of civilians as one-sided. ASEAN has been leading efforts to resolve the crisis stemming from the military coup in Myanmar since 2021 and has once again called for an end to the violence and the protection of civilians. Myanmar's military leaders have characterized the statement as lacking objectivity and being entirely one-sided. They urge the bloc to adhere to the provisions of the ASEAN Charter, particularly emphasizing the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of member states.
As United States President Joe Biden gears up for the G20 summit in India, the White House announces that despite testing negative again for COVID-19, he will wear a mask out of precaution. This after First Lady Jill Biden contracted a mild case of the disease. Bruce Balmeo has more.
President Joe Biden is getting ready for the G20 summit in India. And because the First Lady has recently tested positive for COVID, the White House announces that the president will be wearing a mask in certain circumstances.
The First Lady is experiencing mild symptoms and will remain in Delaware for the week. President Biden tested negative last night for COVID-19 and tested negative again today. He's not experiencing any symptoms. As far as the steps he is taking, since the president was with the First Lady yesterday, he will be masking while indoors and around people.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan announces Biden will reassure that the U.S. will remain committed to the G20 as a critical forum for all the major economies of the world to come together for global problem solving.
So as we head into New Delhi, our focus is going to be on delivering for developing countries, making progress on key priorities for the American people, from climate to technology, and showing our commitment to the G20 as a forum that can actually, as I said before, deliver.
In Washington, D.C., Bruce Balmeo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The European Union is set to organize a mini-summit with the African Union on the sidelines of the Group of 20 summit on September 9. Sources say European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, as well as European Council President Charles Michel and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will be present at the meeting. One of the main goals of the mini-summit is the endorsement of AU's bid to become a permanent G20 member. Meanwhile, other issues to be set on the table of the mini-summit include the impact of the Ukrainian conflict on global food security, as well as investment in Africa.
The Russian-led Collective Security Treaty Organization is currently conducting a military exercise called Combat Brotherhood 1 in Belarus. Troops from 6 participating countries, namely Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Belarus, and Russia, are taking part in this joint exercise. RT's Roman Kosarev has the details.
We are in the trenches with the Russian contingent of the Collective Security Treaty Organization's forces. Of course, we are in Belarus at military training at the moment. There are representatives of several countries, including Russia, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan as well. Right now, this particular exercise is designed to defend and to overtake an enemy stronghold. Right now, Russian soldiers of the Russian airborne troops are using Kalashnikov rifles and in an attempt to defend this particular stronghold. Combat Brotherhood 2023 will last for 6 days. Over this period of time, forces from Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan will go through a series of exercises and different scenarios how to protect the country's borders. Roman Kosarev, RT, Belarus.
The United Kingdom's government is considering designating the Wagner Group as a terrorist organization, which would enable the seizure of their assets as terrorist property. The UK alleges that the Wagner Group has been involved in executions and torture in Mali and the Central African Republic. If the proscription order is enacted, it will be deemed a criminal offense to support the group, including displaying its flag or expressing support for its goals. This decision comes at a time when the group has been significantly weakened by the recent death of its top leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has denied the claim that his country is supplying weapons to Russia after U.S. envoy bet his life on the accuracy of the reports. RT's Noluvuyo Kunge tells us more.
None of the allegations made about the supply of weapons to Russia have been proven to be true, and none of the persons who made these allegations could provide any evidence to support the claims that had been leveled against our country.
The president has indeed shared some detail of the findings of a panel report that investigated allegations by U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Brigetti, who claimed that weapons and ammunition were loaded onto the Russian cargo ship in December of last year. This, of course, was a shocking assertion, I must say, especially made by an American official against a country that the United States has been trying to court in the global efforts to isolate Russia. The president said that the panel led by retired Judge Phineas Mujapilo visited the naval base in the Western Cape and obtained evidence from nearly 50 people, and more than 100 documents were submitted for examination. The claims were made in May last year, where the ambassador Ruben Brigetti said that he'd bet his life on those allegations. Let's have a listen to this.
The arming of Russia by South Africa with the vessel that landed in Simonstown is fundamentally unacceptable. We are confident that weapons were loaded onto that vessel, and I would bet my life on the accuracy of that assertion.
Ruben Brigetti not so long ago admitted that he crossed the line when he said that US was convinced that South Africa supplied arms to Russia. But it does seem like the US has underestimated just how deeply damaging the ramifications were. And when you think back at the economic ramifications now that the country, South Africa, experienced since those claims were made, because at that time we even saw the country's domestic currency falling to record lows of 19 rand against $1, and that was not seen since the COVID-19 pandemic.
A State Bank of India research paper reports BRICS developing nations' share of gross domestic product will soar to 30% from 26%. This comes once Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates officially joined the bloc. Sources say the increased share of global wealth comes from the percentage of worldwide oil production. Meanwhile, the group will contain 48% of the world population upon membership of the 6 new nations.
Iranians marked the National Day of Fight Against British Colonialism by celebrating the 109th anniversary of the martyrdom of Rais Ali Delvari. To tell us more, here's RT correspondent Youssef Halali.
There's a famous saying that goes, if you want to understand today, you have to search yesterday. And this cannot be more true about Iran's rift with the West, which was rooted more than a century ago. Now, Iran is marking a historic occasion known as the National Day of the Fight Against British Colonialism. The day coincides with the death of an iconic Iranian anti-colonial fighter known as Rais Ali Delvari, who led a movement of independence against the British rule in southern Iran. It all goes back to the onset of World War I in 1914, when Iran's Qajari ruler declared neutrality in the conflict. But the country was too geostrategically important for the warring sides to stay untouched by the war. Viewing Iran as a bulwark between Europe and India, Britain sought to control southern Iran. But more importantly, black gold had been discovered in southern parts of Iran shortly before the war, leading Britain to think of replacing coal with Iranian oil as a fuel for its warships.
In the first confrontation, the forces of the Ottoman Empire entered Iran from its western borders. Since the Ottomans were hostile to the UK in the First World War, Britain deployed its forces to Iran's southern parts and closed off those regions. The goal was to defend India and also to control Iran's oil.
The UK's adventurism in Iran's southern parts was met with resentment and opposition from locals, especially as it became clear that Britain's political involvement was mainly to secure its oil interests. This gave rise to multiple popular uprisings in areas under British control, with the strongest movement being led by Rais Ali Delvari in the port city of Bushehr.
In his first victorious war with the British troops, Rais Ali Delvari repelled the British forces and stopped them from advancing toward the country through their warships. This was done so that the English soldiers who got off their vessels and entered the Iranian soils either were killed or fled back to their ships. In the next war, England deployed around 40,000 soldiers, while Delvari had less than 1,000. He knew that he was not going to be able to defeat 40,000 soldiers, but he sought to introduce the anti-colonialist thought among the Iranians.
The Iranian hero was ultimately killed in 1915 by Anglo-Indian forces following months of bloody clashes. Every year on the anniversary of his death, Iran commemorates Delvari as a national hero and a symbol of the fight against British colonialism. On Sunday, Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian released a written message on the occasion where he wrote that the path of Delvari will be strictly followed today.
I am sure that this struggle will never be erased from the minds and memories of the Iranian nation, and of course the brilliant path of the great martyr Rais Ali Delvari will be followed with firmness and strength.
The British and American firm grip on Iran's resources finally came to an end after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. But some analysts say the Western exploitative behavior toward Iran continues in different forms.
The nationalization of Iran's oil industry in the 1950s and the victory of Iran's Islamic Revolution in 1979 were the result of the spark that was first ignited by Rais Ali Delvari. So Iranians have had this negative mentality toward Britain since then. Even today, many countries possess a nuclear energy program. Look at Israel. It has several atomic bombs, but they don't pay attention to Israel. Meanwhile, they have been putting pressure on us because of our peaceful nuclear program, and they have been targeting us with sanctions. So they have maintained their hostile behavior toward our country.
Iranians call the UK the old wolf, which largely reflects their thoughts on Britain and its controversial past in Iran, stretching from the use of the country as a trench in World War I all the way to engineering the 1953 coup, which toppled the first democratic government in Iran. Those days are long gone, but they have definitely played their part in shaping Iranians' pessimistic image of the West today, while the West itself certainly isn't doing much to fix that. Yusuf Jalali, RT, Tehran.
Up next, deadly cyclone leaves at least 21 dead in southern Brazil. Hundreds abandon endangered Caribbean island home in Panama. And the United States vows a $30 million pledge across Africa. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break. Don't go away.
Binaril na yung claim nila sa 9-9.
Yung kanang kamay, pinakamayan ang Pilipinas, pero yung kalimang kamay, sinasaksak naman tayo.
Hindi tayo naghahanap ng basagulo, pero nagpo-protesta kami. Ngayon, tayo yung iniipit tapos sinasabi nila, nangako tayo.
Baka magulat na lang tayo, baka may ilabas po ang China na meron silang resibo pala.
Sama-sama nating harapin ang mga issue at problema ng bayan. Dito lang sa ASPN, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. sa Net 25.
Aaksyon sa lahat ng problema. Walang uurungang reklamo. Re-responde anumang sitwasyon. Kung kayo po ay may sumbong, mag-text lamang po sa 0915-415-1035. Mag-email din sa responde@net25.com. Pwede rin kayo magpadala ng inyong pong mensahe sa ating pong Facebook page at Net25TV. Walang imposible at lahat may solusyon sa mga totoong certified e-responder.
In southern Brazil, a cyclone that dumped hail and caused strong winds leaves at least 21 dead. Rio Grande do Sul's governor says he is lamenting the worst death toll in a climate event in his region. Kim Yoria reports.
User-generated content images show floodwaters gushing down Nova Bassano. Nova Bassano is a municipality in the Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul, where torrential rain and winds have left at least 21 people dead. The heavy downpours have been caused by an extratropical cyclone. 62 municipalities have been impacted. Over 52,000 people were affected. Authorities report that more than 3,000 have been evicted and another 1,700 people are left homeless. Authorities warn that the worst is not over. Some rivers have exceeded flood levels and new rains are expected starting Thursday. Kimi Oria from Atanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Burning Man organizers have reopened the road leading out of the remote Nevada Desert Festival, allowing thousands of attendees to escape after they had been trapped for days by mud. Kicking off the official exit process known as the Exodus, attendees could safely leave Black Rock City after organizers officially announced the driving ban had been lifted Monday afternoon. Festival goers had been stranded after torrential rain since Friday night and Saturday. For many attendees, getting stranded in the desert and missing flights was stressful and unsettling. But some said the weather issues brought camp communities closer together as people shared food and resources, offered shelter to those who needed it, and gathered together. Launched in 1986 in San Francisco, Burning Man aims to be an undefinable event somewhere between a celebration of counterculture and a spiritual retreat. It has been held since the 1990s in the Black Rock Desert, which the organizers are committed to preserving.
In Panama, living overcrowded and without drinking water or sanitation, an indigenous community is saying goodbye to their tiny Caribbean island, Cartisugdupu. They are moving to the mainland because in a few years, their homes will be devoured by the sea due to climate change. Sean Davila tells us more.
Cartisugdupu is one of the 365 islands of the archipelago of the indigenous region of Cunayala. People of Cartisugdupu thrive on fishing, tourism, and the production of cassava and plantain, all of which they collect in the continental zone. But life is not easy, heat is intense, and lack of public services does not help. Add to that, more than 1,000 people live on this island, the size of 5 football fields. The population also faces the constant rise of the sea, which regularly floods their houses. Due to the fear that the island will soon sink, residents are deciding to leave to secure the safety of their family's future. The Panamanian government and the Cartisugdupu community have been working for more than a decade on how to move 300 families to the mainland that belongs to the Guna. In Ciudad de Panama, Sean Davila for Matana Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In northern Burkina Faso, 53 members of the security forces have been killed in an attack by suspected jihadists. JC Yumol has the details.
Burkina Faso's army general says 17 soldiers and 36 civilian volunteers for the army died on Monday. This while repelling an attack, the unit which came under attack was deployed in the town of Cumbri in Yatenga province. Its orders, the general says, was to enable resettlement of residents chased out of the area by jihadists more than 2 years ago. About 30 members of the security forces were also reported injured in the attack. Operations are said to be still underway in the area. According to an NGO count, more than 16,000 civilian troops and police have died in the jihadist attack. This number includes more than 5,000 in this year alone. More than 2 million people have been also displaced within Burkina Faso. This makes it one of the worst internal displacement crises in Africa. JC Yumol for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Kurdish-led forces were sending reinforcements to eastern Syria's Deir ez-Zor province amid days of clashes with Arab fighters loyal to a detained local official. Fighting erupted after the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, detained Deir ez-Zor Military Council head Ahmad al-Kabil on August 27. The violence in several towns and villages in Kurdish-controlled areas of Deir ez-Zor province has killed 71 people, mostly fighters but also 9 civilians. SDF spokesman Farhad Shami said that his forces were trying to settle the situation in Diban, the last town where fighters loyal to Kabil were concentrated. Deir ez-Zor province is home to dozens of local tribal communities where some fighters joined the SDF in its battle against the Islamic State jihadist group. The SDF has denied any dispute with Arab tribes in the region, whom they accuse of drug trafficking and communicating with the Syrian government. A semi-autonomous Kurdish administration controls areas in north and northeast Syria through local civilian and military councils in an effort to stave off Arab discontent. The U.S. Embassy in Syria said that 2 senior officials had met with the SDF, urging de-escalation as soon as possible.
At least 6 individuals have lost their lives on the east coast of the United States after contracting flesh-eating bacteria from warming waters. This alarming situation has prompted the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to release a health advisory, urging doctors and public health departments to remain vigilant for these infections. To mitigate the risk, health officials advise people with open wounds to avoid salt water and brackish water. Vibrio bacteria, responsible for about 80,000 illnesses annually in the United States, can result in life-threatening infections, with roughly 1 in 5 cases proving fatal.
A Canadian man pleaded not guilty of murder after being accused of an alleged terrorist attack by running over a Muslim family using his pickup truck, killing 4 people in the process. Nathaniel Veltman has appeared in court in Windsor, Ontario province during the opening of the jury selection, where he pleaded not guilty according to his lawyer. Veltman was charged with 4 counts of murder, as well as 1 count of attempted murder over a June 2021 incident, where he faces up to life in prison. 3 generations of the Afzaal family were killed, leaving just 1 survivor, after they had been struck by a truck on an evening stroll in London, Ontario. London police allege that Veltman deliberately ran over the family in a planned, premeditated attack motivated by hate. The Superior Court trial is expected to last about 3 months.
A deeply disturbing video has emerged depicting a brutal attack on an elderly black woman in a New York City subway station. Bystanders did not intervene to assist her, while an employee called the police and recorded the incident. The assailant managed to escape before law enforcement arrived at the scene, and to date, no arrests have been made.
Thousands of teachers in South Korea walked off the job Monday in protest over bullying by parents and students. The instructors say it has led to some staff taking their own lives. David Oria reports.
About 15,000 teachers attended a memorial in front of the National Assembly in Seoul for colleagues who recently committed suicide. They laid flowers down, chanted slogans, and waved banners. The rally forced some schools to close. Thousands of other instructors elsewhere in the country held similar protests. Teachers say domineering parents and unruly students are making life so miserable that some of their colleagues resort to suicide. They say they are accused of child abuse when they discipline pupils. Teachers say the Ministry of Education must protect them, or there will be more suicides. Authorities warn that the job action is illegal and teachers should face disciplinary action. David Oria from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The French army is holding talks with Niger's military over withdrawing elements of its presence. There has been speculation that France will be forced into a full military pullout from Niger after the July 26 coup, which ousted French ally President Mohamed Bazoum. Some 1,500 troops are deployed in Niger as part of France's wider fight against jihadists in the Sahel. The country became a crucial hub for France after coups forced a withdrawal of French troops from neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso. Relations between Niger and France, the country's former colonial power and traditional ally, went swiftly downhill after Paris stood by the elected Bazoum and declared the post-coup regime as illegitimate. On August 3, the coup leaders renounced several military cooperation agreements with France, including one with a month-long notice period that expired on Sunday. The French forces are mostly based at an airfield near the capital, Niamey, which in recent days has been targeted by thousands of protesters calling on them to leave.
The European Union has pledged to work towards securing the release of a Swedish man who was working for its diplomatic service and is currently detained in Iran. Iranian authorities recently announced the arrest of the Swedish national on espionage charges, prompting Sweden to call for his immediate release. The detained individual is believed to be held at Tehran's Evin prison, where other foreign nationals and Iranians with dual nationality have also been convicted of similar charges, including espionage or war crimes.
Former leader of the far-right Proud Boys militia, Enrique Tarrio, was sentenced to 22 years in prison on Tuesday. The punishment is for his role in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Irvin Arquiza reports.
The 22-year sentence handed out to Enrique Tarrio of the Proud Boys for the January 6 U.S. Capitol attack is the most severe sentence handed out so far. U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly says what happened on January 6 broke the country's previously unbroken tradition of peacefully transferring power. The attack was an attempt to stop the congressional certification of Democrat Joe Biden's 2020 election victory over Donald Trump. During a nearly 4-hour sentencing hearing in the nation's capital, Kelly says Tarrio was the ultimate leader of the conspiracy. Prosecutors had sought a 33-year prison term for Tarrio. Although he was not in Washington on January 6, Tarrio was accused of directing the military-style assaults on the Capitol by members of the Proud Boys and other supporters of the former president. 39-year-old Tarrio and several other members of the Proud Boys were convicted of seditious conspiracy in May for their roles in the attack. In Washington, D.C., Irvin Arquiza for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Greenpeace showed its disdain for motor vehicles at the International Motor Show in Munich, Germany. Climate activists have vowed to stage protests aimed at disrupting the event. Emi Capilita Roja reports.
Greenpeace kicked off the protests the day before the show opened. Activists submerged the cutout frames of 3 cars into a small lake outside the convention center in Munich. The license plate of one of them read "Climate Killer." Greenpeace spokeswoman Marisa Reiserer says the auto industry continues to rely on too many cars. She says the vehicles are too big and too heavy, adding manufacturers are sinking the planet with their business model. Other activists say they will engage in civil disobedience throughout the week to disrupt the show. It's unlikely the protests will have much impact on the event, which is one of the biggest in the world. An estimated 700,000 visitors are expected to pass through the turnstiles. Emi Capilita Roja for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
At the Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, the United States says it will provide another $30 million for climate-resilient food security efforts across Africa. Randy Bayuga has more.
These landmark African climate talks seek a united voice to highlight Africa's green growth potential. Only if the world steps up help for funding and debt. U.S. Climate Envoy John Kerry says the U.S. will commit an additional $30 million for climate-resilient food production across the African continent.
We joined with our friends in Europe and elsewhere to say that no, it's not adequate to do that over a 2-year period. We need to close out and understand where we're going with the Loss and Damage Fund in 1 year, this year, when we all meet in Dubai. So, in addition, as part of implementing PREPARE, I'm pleased to announce today also, we're going to provide an additional $30 million for climate-resilient food security efforts across Africa.
Kenyan President William Ruto warns that climate change is a deadly threat to all the world, and to reverse it, only a united global action will work.
The urgency of this moment is informed by the knowledge that climate change is the greatest challenge, not only to the well-being of humanity, but to every existence of life on Earth, and that only urgent and coordinated action on a global scale can stop the impending catastrophe by lowering greenhouse gas emissions and reducing their concentration in the atmosphere.
Tanzanian president reiterates that so much is at stake and that solutions must be made sooner than later.
The stakes are high and actions have to take place not tomorrow, but today and literally now. As Africans, we have no choice but to seize the moment to capitalize on its potential to offer solutions to green growth and decarbonization, and while creating resilience to our communities and economies.
Ronnie Bayuga for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
An epidemic killing thousands of sea urchins is making the west coast of the French island of Reunion in the Indian Ocean a disastrous scene. A devastating parasite is likely responsible for the excessive mortality, and a scientist says no means are available to prevent the deaths. Bernadette Regini reports.
Since July, thousands of sea urchins have been washing up on sandy beaches, in creeks, and in natural coastal basins of Réunion Island in France. Marine biologist Jean-Pascal Quad says the epidemic has been spreading throughout the island for 3 weeks now. This means they are dealing with an immunity and parasitism problem rather than a local pollution problem. Quad says they found a parasite present called philaster. Philaster, Quad says, has also been causing a major problem in Israel since the beginning of the year and has also caused a global regional problem in the West Indies last year. Bruce Coven of the Marine Natural Reserve of Réunion Island says marine organisms are important. And unfortunately, the coral reefs on the island have been degraded. Coven says only 20% coral cover is observed at their scientific monitoring stations. The coral specialist says it is worrying to see organisms like sea urchins, which are there to regulate the algae, disappearing. He says it is the first time in 25 years that he has witnessed a phenomenon of this importance, with several thousand specimens washing up on the beaches. Bernadette Regini from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, witness how scientists develop an AI nose. Find out who the first batch of winners are in the U.S. Open quarterfinals. And Germany escapes Latvia in the FIBA World Cup thriller. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
We're in the sky! Kaya lumilipad na naman tayo. Sino ba itong uupo ngayon sa ating iconic chairs?
Finally, nag-guess na rin ako dito. Just canceled everything for you.
Talaga? Ay, naku, nakakatuwa naman. Medyo kakaiba ang ating papasukin ngayong araw. The Goodwill Resort with the Goodwill Cast. Woo! Tinur niya tayo sa kanyang bagong buhay.
Mundo.
Tamang-tama, pinag-uusapan sila ng lahat ngayon. Tingnan ka!
Ayan na.
Ayan na. Alam mo talaga siya, no?
Yes! Tatlong buwan!
Kinasal ka na? Yes! Ngayon natin malalaman ang totoo. So now, let's spill the coffee.
Spill the coffee.
Yes. And we're here at Net25. Ito ang tahanan ng Corina Interviews.
Inflation in Turkey last month reached nearly 60%, a rise of more than 9% from the previous month. The rising prices have been fueled by the depreciation of the Turkish lira. Thomas Eyelikeness has that story.
At this market in a working-class neighborhood of Istanbul, consumers are having trouble filling their shopping bags. Because the Turkish currency has lost so much value, people's purchasing power is not what it used to be, and everything costs more. With food and energy prices soaring, Turkish citizens find it a challenge to make ends meet. Recent tax increases have added to people's financial woes. Hardest hit are those on fixed incomes, people like pensioners. And there could be more bad news on the horizon. The recent inflationary bump might prompt Turkey's central bank to hike interest rates again. Back in June, it raised rates from 8.5% to 25%. The central bank meets again September 21st to decide what to do with interest rates. In the meantime, consumers like these, struggling with low incomes that can't keep up with rising prices, find themselves paring down their shopping lists. Thomas I. Likeness from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Scientists have developed an artificial intelligence or AI system capable of smelling and predicting the odor of a chemical based on its molecular structure. The research team constructed the AI model using a data set that contained the molecular compositions of 5,000 recognized odorants. They trained the model to select from a vocabulary of 55 words, including descriptors like musty and mint, to characterize odors. Surprisingly, the researchers have discovered that their AI model outperformed human panelists in assessing the odors of 53% of the compounds examined. This innovative technology aims to advance our understanding of human olfactory senses and potential applications in identifying new fragrances or flavors and even developing scents for use in mosquito repellents, among other functions.
Now that it's the quarterfinals, here are the first batch of winners to advance to the semifinal round in the 2023 U.S. Open. In the women's singles, Coco Gauff continues her dominance in the tournament as she clinches a spot into her first U.S. Open semifinals by defeating Yelena Ostapenko. Gauff put on a masterclass of consistency to roar past Ostapenko in 2 sets, 6-0 and 6-2. With the feat, the 19-year-old Gauff has now won 10 matches in a row, tying her previous career best win streak. She is also now the first American teenager to reach the U.S. Open semifinals since Serena Williams in 2001. The number 6 seed Gauff will face the number 10 seed Karolina Muchova next. Over to the men's singles. Ben Shelton makes history by becoming the youngest American U.S. Open semifinalist after winning against Francis Tiafoe. To what has been an all-American battle, Shelton defeated Tiafoe in 4 sets, 6-2, 3-6, 7-6, and 6-2. With the feat, the 20-year-old Shelton cracked the top 20 of the Pepperstone ATP Live rankings for the first time and moved to within 1 match of reaching his first Grand Slam semifinal. Standing in his way is Novak Djokovic, who will be lacing up for a record-breaking 47th major semifinal. He continues his quest for a 10th final and 4th title at the U.S. Open, where he hopes to build on his record haul of 23 Grand Slam titles. Meanwhile, in the FIBA World Cup, a returning Franz Wagner leads Germany past Latvia to the semifinals. This after Wagner scored 16 points with 8 rebounds to an 81-79 win for Germany. With the feat, Germany remains the only team with a perfect record of a 6-0 win-loss record. To what has been a neck-to-neck battle, Wagner's return from injury was perfect timing to secure Germany's victory. Next up for Germany will be powerhouse Team USA in the semifinals on Friday. Meanwhile, sad news for the Dominican Republic basketball team as they have announced that their physiotherapist, Vladimir Regalado, had died on the way back from the FIBA World Cup. In a post, the team said that Regalado suffered a heart attack while accompanying the team back home. The FIBA World Cup organization and Dominican Republic player Karl Anthony Towns are among those who expressed their deepest sympathies to Regalado. The team described Regalado as a fundamental pillar, dedicated and passionate about his work. Gary Busey is being investigated by authorities for his alleged role in a hit-and-run crash in Malibu in late August. Gary Busey is currently being investigated by the police after he allegedly hit a woman's back bumper while exiting a shopping center in Malibu in late August. According to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department investigators, the incident happened on August 30 at around 3:30 p.m. when deputies were dispatched to the 2300 block of Pacific Coast Highway. The 79-year-old Oscar-nominated actor had allegedly driven into a woman's car, but instead of stopping to hand over his insurance documents, Busey drove away from the scene. On Tuesday, TMZ posted a video clip showing an unidentified woman filming her pursuit of the actor, yelling and accusing Busey of hitting her car and requesting his insurance information. Busey was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1978 for his role as Buddy Holly in The Buddy Holly Story.
And to help you get through this week and halfway through the work week already, here's a quote from English actor Idris Elba. Know what your target is. Don't guess it. If you don't want or if you don't know what your targets are, you're never going to get there.
Perfect motivation for a Hump Day Wednesday.
Definitely.
You know, really just got to stay focused on that target.
And if ever you're halfway through already, you only have the other half to get through it.
You're almost there.
And achieve your dreams.
Almost there. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Lianes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.